The second lab that you're going to be doing that is associated with carbohydrates. So the first one we did had protein, starch, and possibly lipid hydrolysis. Now we're going to look at carbohydrate fermentation. In this case, you're going to have an enzyme that works within the cell, breaking down particular sugars, and then it puts off a byproduct that you can measure in the media. Okay? With this one, you're going to have either 3 or 4 of these per, or you're going to have 3 of these per bacteria. We have 3 of the bacteria and possibly we'll have 4. So you'll either have 12 tubes or 9 tubes. Okay, so if we have 3 bacteria, you'll have 9. If we have 4 bacteria, you'll have 12. These are 3 different sugars. And so you're going to put each bacteria into each tube. So I'd put E. coli into all 3. And I'd put, what's the other ones we're using? I can't remember. Almost pretend staph into all 3. And one of them, the typhi mirium one, we may or may not have gotten in. I think we did, so you'll probably end up with 12. Okay? And like I said in the previous video, you already had the 4 for the gelatin, so now we're adding on to tubes. And that's if we do 2 labs together, which you guys will be doing, and then some classes will be doing the other 2 also. And so the other thing that I wanted to mention was in the previous video, I forgot to remind you that when you put plates in the incubator, lid side down, auger side up, otherwise too much condensation will form and you'll end up with swimming bacteria, which is really gross. You don't want that. Okay? So the same thing as we did last time, make sure you label the tubes. Now the tubes themselves have the name of the media, like this dextrose, which is glucose, says it on the label. This lactose will say LAC, and the sucrose will say SUC. So if you don't know what that means, write it out. So write sucrose, and lactose so that you know for sure. We don't want to mix anything up. And then once again, you'll label with the name of the bacteria and your group name. Now for this particular one, we're looking at particular products. One of the things I want you to notice about all 3 of these tubes, they are red, or a form of red. This one's a little bit more orange, but they're going to be red in color. If you pick up a tube that's yellow or looks really yellowish, don't use it. That means it's contaminated. Okay, so make sure your tubes are red to begin with because we're looking for the difference of turning from red to yellow. One of the things in the media is called Phenol Red, which is an indicator of acid. So if it turns yellow, that means your bacteria produced acid. If it remains red, it did not. And then if it turns a hot pink, that means it went the other direction and it was using proteins instead of sugar and making more of a neutral product. The other thing you will see is there's a little tube inside there that's upside down and there's no air in it. Now when you go to look at your tubes, if you notice an air bubble in there, make sure you make a note of that on your lab so then when you look at it next time, if the air bubble is bigger, that means gas. If it's the same, it wouldn't be gas. So we're looking for color change and we're looking for whether or not it produces gas. And that little tube inside there upside down is called a Durham tube. So we're going to do what we've always done. Alright. So since it's a liquid, we're going to use a needle. Now these are screw top tubes. So you kind of unscrew it a little bit before you grab the other tube just so that it's not so hard to get off once you have the other tube. Okay? So this may be a little bit more challenging than last time. So I think that I'm going to do it this way and get this one off first with my pinky. And then I'll grab the one for the, so then I'm going to go into it. Make sure it's cooled off enough that you don't see a sizzle. Just dip it in there. You don't need to shake it too much because you don't want to actually add to the bubble. Slightly get that on there. Sterilize my loop. And now I want to close this. Now, for these tubes that you're putting in the incubator, you don't want them completely tightly closed because they need oxygen. Even though they're going through fermentation, is what we're looking for, you want a little bit of oxygen because they're not anaerobes, okay? So you want it to be on but not tight. So what I do is I tighten it completely, and then I quarter turn back or a half turn back. You don't want the lids falling off, but you want them to be loose. Now we are looking for fermentation, which can happen in the presence of oxygen or without oxygen. So we're looking for products like acid and gas, which you'll see the results on the next video.